Alright guys, so let's continue our discussion. So in our last class, we talked about SDFS commands. We saw the basic fundamental commands. We'll take it forward and then we'll understand few more commands today. Okay, we'll continue our discussion on SDFS command itself. Okay, so I'll just share my screen because it's a practical class. I'll share my screen and then let's start with all the commands one by one. So we are now going to talk about Hadoop FS chmod. Okay, now chmod is basically what you know. It basically allows you to change the permissions of files and folders, and this is very similar to what you used to do in Linux, right? For example, say you have a file and you want to change the permission of that file, then what do? You use a command chmod, right? Similarly, in Hadoop also, let's say you have a file, right, and you want to change some permission of this file, so you would basically use chmod command. Okay, so chmod and then -r means recursively, and this 770 means the permission for 3 people: yourself, okay, other people in the same group, and others, outsiders. I'll talk about this for the people who are not aware of this. So any file system in Linux environment, right? So let's say you have a file called data.txt. So by default, when you want to define a permission to this file, you can define the permission at 3 level. Okay, so one is yourself, okay, the other one is other folks in same group, in the same group, okay, and third is outsiders, right? So you have a permissions like this: 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Okay, that's how basically you write a permission of any file, and these are all binaries. Okay, so it's like 1 2 4, okay, again 1 2 4, again 1 2 4. This is how basically you define the permission of any file. Okay, and this is for yourself. Okay, this is for your team members, group members. Okay, and this is for others, which means, now see here, if I say I have a file and I want to, you know, like have full permission for myself, I want to have a full permission for my group members, then what you will do? You will say 7, see 4 5 6 7, 7 for yourself, and I said full permission to your group member also, so 7, and then let's say no permission to outsider, then 0. This is how you will define, right? So that means if you define a file with a permission 770, that means you are saying I want to have a full access to this file. I can edit, delete, or whatever I want to do. Even my group are allowed to do that, but then others are not allowed to do it, right? Similarly, you may say I should have a write permission, read write. So see, these are called as read write execute. Okay, so read write execute. These are called as RWX, read write execute. Now I may say I have a file and what I want is I want to have read write execute. Okay, and then I want my team member to have read and execute but not write. Okay, and the outsiders can have only read but nothing else, right? So if that is the case, then how are you going to define the permission? This is 7, this is 7, okay, and this is what? 4 and 1 5, 4 and 1 5, and what is this? 4. So you will say the permission of that file should be 7 5 and 4. Okay, so that's how you will basically define a permission in Linux file system, and the same thing can be done in your SDFS as well. Okay, so let's move on. So I'll share my screen again. Now look into this. I'm saying Hadoop FS -chmod -r means recursively start implementing, start giving the same permission to all the files, folders, and all if that exists, and this is the path, right? So let's try to do this. Okay, so let's try to do this, and we assume that you have already created word3.txt in your /user SD user. So if you stop your virtual machine, then all your services would be down. Okay, all your name node, secondary name node, whatever 5 demos were up and running, they will all be shut down. And if you again launch your system, then you must check JPS and you will not see anything. Okay, so you should again say start all.sh. Once you're done, you again say JPS and make sure that at least this 5 demos are up and running, right? Otherwise your command would not work. Okay, so once you're done, you just say Hadoop FS -chmod -r 770 /user SD user word3.txt. So I'm saying I want to have a full permission for myself. I want to have a full permission for all my team members, group members. I don't want anybody to have any other permission apart from me and my group, right? So 770 is what you will do. Now, once you're done, you just try to check the status by saying Hadoop fs-ls, okay? And when you do that, if you see, you can see that, you see the first hyphen is basically for directory or file. If it is a file, it shows you a hyphen. If it is a directory, then it will show you D, right? Apart from that, if you see the first group permission, see 7, right? So 7 means what? 1, 2, 4. Everything should be on. RWX, everything is on, right? Second is basically group permission. This is the group permission. So again, it is 7. So 7 means what? RWX, right? And again, the third one is 0. The third one is 0, right? And 0 means what? No permission at all. So dash, dash, dash. That's how you will be basically able to give some permissions to a particular file. Now let us talk about chown. Okay, so chown is basically change owner, right? For example, say you have worked on, like some file or folder, right? And then you own that folder, and since you own that folder, nobody else are allowed to do any operation because you are the owner of it, right? And you would say, hey, I have created this folder, but let me change this ownership to you, right? So that you have all the control moving forward. So in that case, what you'll do, you can do a chown. Okay, so you'll say Hadoop fs-chown change owner. Again, chown is basically a command in Linux as well. Okay, so Hadoop fs-chown -r recursively. Okay, now I'm saying this file word3.txt, which is present here, I want Suraj of supergroup to be the new owner of this particular file. No matter who was the previous owner, I want this file ownership to be changed to Suraj from supergroup, right? So when you do that one, what will happen is your file ownership would be transferred to Suraj supergroup. Okay, see here. Let me try this out. Okay, so see, earlier when we said /user SD user word3, what we saw was the owner was, who was the owner? SD user of supergroup. So the owner was SD user of supergroup. But then I said chown, and I said I want this to be changed to Suraj of supergroup. And let's do this ls again. Right now, if you see, the owner got changed. Earlier it was SD user who was the owner of this file, but now it is Suraj, right? And then if Suraj exists, well and good. If Suraj does not exist, then nobody will be able to access this because the owner is somebody else, right? So if you do not have a Suraj owner, then what will happen? This is a permission, but other people from the same group member. Now see here, SD user and Suraj, if you see, they are basically of the same group. That means SD user can also do read, write, and execute because the permission is that, right? So like that's how you will be basically able to set the permissions for your files as well. That's how you'll be basically able to change your ownership as well as you can set your permissions, right? Now let's move on. Now we will talk about Hadoop fscp. Again, now Hadoop fscp command is for copying source into target within the cluster. So the copy command can be used to copy multiple file into the target. In this case, the target should be a directory. The syntax would go like this. We know how to put a file into HDFS, right? So what do? You say Hadoop fs-put. Is not it? So you know how to get the file from there. You will say Hadoop fs-get, right? But then you already have a file in HDFS in one location. You want to move that file into another location. You want to copy that file into another location. Okay, so you can use a command called cp. Okay, you can use a command called cp. Okay, now what I'll do here, let me create a log. Let me create a folder in HDFS, right? So I'll say paste. I'm creating a folder in HDFS. I created a folder called /user SD user log. Let's try to see what is the content here. Hadoop fs-ls, right? And I can just say logs. I don't even have to write this, right? Because this is the default location for me. And just hit enter, you will find nothing here because it's a newly created folder. Done. Now let us try to copy this word3.txt into this log. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll copy this, okay, and say paste. Now Hadoop fs-cp /user SD user word3.txt /user SD user logs word4.txt. What are you trying to do? You are trying to copy the file called word3.txt, which is present in this location, into your location called /user SD user logs word4.txt, right? And this logs is basically a folder which you created recently. Inside that you want to have this file word4.txt. So hit enter, right? Done. So Hadoop fs-cp /user sduser word3.txt and word4.txt. So what we did is we copied this content to this word4.txt. Now you just say Hadoop fs-ls, right? And you can just say logs. You don't have to write this, right? Because you know that these are default location for me. So you can just say logs and you should see word4.txt, right? You should see word4.txt. You want to check the content of it. So just say word4.txt and you say Hadoop fs-cat or text, whatever, right? So this would give you the content. See, the content is word3 because that's what was the content in word3.txt file. Another thing is when you do a copy, right, it is important to understand, do you have enough permission to copy this file into other location? If you do not have a permission, then you will not be able to do that, right? So you must make sure that there are permissions, you have like sufficient permissions to do a read, right? Because you're trying to copy, that means you need a read permission at least. Let's try to do this. The below command copies the content of word3.txt in data2 file. So see here, I can also do something like this. I can say Hadoop fs-cp /user sduser word3.txt to data1 folder /data2. Now it is important to understand, if data2 is a folder, then this word3.txt would be copied inside that. Okay, if data2 is not a folder, then data2 would become a file. That's very important to understand. So you say Hadoop fs-ls data1, you will see that you'll get a data2, right? And this data2 is not a directory. See here, you did not see a D, right? That means it's a file and it has a size, right? Which means it is a file. So if at all you are trying to do a copy, try to understand what is this destination. Is that a directory? If that directory exists, then this file will be copied into that, right? And if this is not a directory, then it would be treated as a file. That's how it is. Okay, now let's look into this. What does it do? Create a file called word3.txt under data1 /data3 folder. Fails if data3 folder does not exist. So let's try to do this. Okay, so I'll just say copy, and here if you see, my intention is very clear. I am trying to say I want to copy word3.txt under data3 folder, right? Because I gave slash, and slash actually means I am trying to predict that data3 is basically a folder. So the first thing is, let's try to see what is the content of data1. So what is the content of data1? The content of data1 is what? Data2 and word2.txt. And let me try to say paste. So what I'm saying is I'm trying to copy this word3.txt in a data3. Now see what it is saying is, it's saying the data3 does not exist because you said slash, and when you say slash, Hadoop understood that you are actually treating data3 as a folder, and that's where the problem is. You remove this data, you remove this slash, then what will happen? The data would be copied in a file called data3 file, right? And this would not be a problem. Copying multiple file into a single target directory, the target directory must exist. The below piece of code copies word1.txt and word3.txt to /user sduser data folder. Let's see that. So you'll say Hadoop fs-mkdir data. Let's create a folder called data, right? Where this folder would be created, guys? This folder would be created on /user /sduser, right? So Hadoop fs-ls /user /hduser. Here you will get one folder called data. We have a lot of folder, but then this is what you have created just now. This is what you have created just now. Okay, next. Now I want to copy my word1 and word3 to data folder. Okay, so let me try this out. See here, I'm trying to say I want to copy word1.txt, word3.txt to a folder called data, and data folder is what we have recently created. Okay, so if you look into the first two paths, you have not given a complete path, right? You've just given the file name, and if you just give the file name, that means I'm actually expecting these files and this file 3, right? I'm expecting this file and this file to be copied under my data location, right? So if you're trying to copy multiple stuff, then this would be a folder, right? So let's say enter, done. So it has copied the data into data folder. Now you can just say Hadoop fs-ls and check the data, and you should see word1.txt and word3.txt has been copied successfully. Okay, so again let me go back. Now you could have also done something like this: Hadoop fs-cp word star.txt. It supports wildcard. You can say I want to copy everything that starts with word followed by anything to this particular location, right? And if you see, I've given this sdfs / user sd user and all, right? So see, you can either write it like this. So there are ways of writing this. Okay, so you could have just written data, that would have also been okay, right? So it's up to you what style you want to use. So see here, if suppose you have if suppose you want to like say Hadoop fs-ls data, okay, you can write the same thing in this way. Is not it? Because you just said data, and that data means /user /sd user /data. You can write it like this, or you can also write it like this: sdfs : localhost 9000 /user sd user data. Okay, or you can also write it this way. Okay, now if you see here, sdfs : these two slash means sdfs file system. Okay, and then your path starts from here. Okay, so that's how basically you can write the same command in multiple approach. You write this, you write this, or you write this, or you write this. It's one and same. It basically does the same thing for you. Now let's talk about the next command, that is Hadoop fs get merge. What does it do? Let's see. Okay, takes the source directory and destination files as input and concatenates files into source in the destination local file. So let's understand this. Okay, let me just execute this command. So what I did is I just executed the command with a complete path. Okay, I said Hadoop fs get merge fruits.txt, sports.txt, and fruits_sports1.txt. Let me say ls. So what I can see is I can see that it has created a file called fruit_sports.txt, right? So let me say cat fruits_sports1.txt, right? Now if you see, you have got the content properly. And what is this get merge is doing? Get merge is basically combining the output of two files, mixing them, I mean concatenating them, and getting them in our local file system. So what it did is it was able to copy the content of a file into a local file, right? So that's what it did. You can also do something like this: Hadoop fs -get merge, right? And you can say -nl fruits, and instead of writing fruits, let me say fruits_fruits.txt, and instead of writing sports, let me say sports/sports.txt. Okay, and then let me just change it to 3 probably. Okay, now what we have done is we have used -nl. Okay, so we have just used one extra property here, -nl, and let us see what does it do for us. Done. So it has executed. Now let me do what? Let me say cat fruits sports 3.txt. Okay, now what you see is there is an extra space, right? Sorry, there is an extra new line, right? If you see, the new lines were created. So what it is doing is, when you're merging two files, it is just giving us a new line between the content of two different files. That is how you will be able to later process them, in a like piece by piece, right? You'll have a clue when exactly one file was over, when exactly the next file is getting started. And that's what your get merge does for you. So next is thresh. Very important. Okay, so by default your thresh is not enabled in your Hadoop cluster. However, you can enable it using this simple technique, and this is what everybody does, right? In a real-time production, you definitely will have thresh, because many times what happens, we by mistakenly delete some files from SDFS which we have recently processed. I want to get that back, right? So what you can do is, probably you can see, you have to enable this. Okay, by default it will not be enabled. This will not be enabled by default. So what you need to do is, you should say sudo vim /user local hadoop etc hadoop codesite.xml. And I am sure you might have seen this when you were doing your Hadoop installation, right? So you can basically edit this file, right? You have to edit this file and take like set this property. So what I'll do is I'll just say paste. Okay, password is Hadoop. Okay, now here you'll have to set that property. And what is that property? That property is this fs thresh interval and some number. Okay, and what is this number? This number is how long do you want to keep your data in thresh, and this number is in minutes. Okay, now if you say 10080, that actually means 7 days, right? Because 7 into 24 into 60 is basically this many minutes, right? Copy this and you have to configure them here, right? So just say I insert mode, just go a little up and see if you have not enabled this stuff, right? So you have not enabled this stuff. So what you could do is you can just keep them here anywhere, right? But then make sure that this is an XML file and you should properly put them together. Otherwise, you'll have a tough time. Escape : WQ, done. Hadoop fs-rmr. Okay, let me try to do this Hadoop fs-rmr. So I'll say Hadoop fs-ls and let me delete one folder first. I'll say Hadoop fs-rmr data. Oh, it is enabled. Okay, so it is enabled. If you see here, Hadoop fs-rmr data, when I did that, so what happened is it is giving me this message. So probably the restart is not required. Okay, now Hadoop fs-rmr, when we did, what it did is it has moved this file into a location, into a thresh location. It's just like a recycle bin in your Windows, right? It started working, and what happens, you get to see this kind of message. Okay, now let's see what happened. Okay, see here, this data, I was trying to delete this data folder. Is not it? I was trying to delete this data folder, and this data folder was where? In my current location. And what is my current location? /user sd user, right? So let's see where exactly it was moved. See here, this file /user sd user data folder. This folder was moved to .thresh current user sd user data, right? So whatever you are deleting from your user, that would always go inside your user. There would be a .thresh folder. Now if you see, this is your SDFS location, is not it? See here, you have just moved this file into .thresh folder of your current working user, right? And inside that will basically follow the same structure. Okay, so whenever you are deleting anything, it basically by default goes to your thresh. Okay, and this is what you will see in the production, because at any time we make a lot of mistakes. It's possible that we might delete the files and folders which we have recently processed, and we may want to get that back into our life, right? So now if you want to get that back into the life, the simple approach would be, you can do this. Okay, you can say, okay, Hadoop fs-move .thresh current user sd user data, I want to get it into my current working directory. So let's try this out, right? So I'll say copy, and before I do that, I'll say Hadoop fs-ls. We have removed this data folder, right? So if you see, data folder is not there, right? So if you see, the data folder is not there, but you have a .thresh file today because you enabled that property, right? And if you see, that thresh file was not shown to you earlier, right? See here, I did a Hadoop fs-ls, but thresh file was not shown because I had not configured that core site.xml. Okay, now once you have done that, now what we'll do is we'll try to recover that file again. Okay, so I'll say, okay, from this thresh, from current user sd user, you have a data folder, give it back to me in my current working directory, right? So it's just saying Hadoop fs-move. Now again you say Hadoop fs-ls, right? So you got your data folder back from your thresh, and that's how it works. Now let's move on. So that's what you can do. Okay, so for each Hadoop user like SD user, you have their own .thresh folder. You have their own thresh folder. Now let us try to understand one more thing, that is skip a thresh. Okay, sometimes your file could be little larger, and you know that whenever you say Hadoop fs-rmr, that will always go to your thresh folder. That will always go to your thresh folder, right? So sometimes you may be interested not to put this in your thresh. Okay, so what you should do is you should use a skip thresh. I'll give an example what happened, right? So when I was working in my previous job, right, we used to run a lot of Spark job, right? And every time we used to write the data in SDFS. And most of the time what happens, I was just doing some experiment. I was just doing some experiment in production. Okay, so I'm just doing some experiment in production environment, and that was required because certain things does not work in the test environment. And when you do a lot of experiment in your production, what happens is you get a lot of files, right? And since you get a lot of files, you start getting the message from the team saying that, hey, the SDFS cluster at production is running out of the space. We just have 50 GB or 100 GB left. Can you all please clean up your stuff? Probably, right? Now, what you should probably do is you should say Hadoop FS-RM R and delete that data, right? But then where it will go? It will go to your skip thresh, right? So in the production, if the admin sends the reminder, and if you guys do not, like act on it, then the admin has all the rights to go to the skip thresh and clean the space from there, and you have nothing to question. You cannot question that, right? Because thresh is something where you have put the file and then it does not make any sense, right? But then nobody would basically clean your data from your user location. You have all the rights to ask them, how did you clean the data from my location, right? But then you are not allowed to ask them, why did you clean it from your thresh, right? But anyways, your thresh will also consume the space, right? So what happened is, anytime when I was running a job, I know that it was an experimental job, and whenever I get the folder, I did not wanted my folder to go to even thresh. The reason is because if it goes to the thresh, it will still occupy the space, right? So the only thing I could do is skip thresh, right? So you do your experiment, but then you are sure that what you are doing, right? Skip thresh, if you do, then your folder will not go in thresh. You cannot recover it back. Okay, so you cannot recover it back. So you can just say Hadoop FS-RMR-R skip thresh of data. So what does it do? It basically deletes this data permanently without even sending it to your thresh folder, right? And then recovering this would be hard. Okay, so let's do this. If you don't want that to come back to your thresh, all right, so the data is deleted, right? Now this data is deleted, but then it does not go to your thresh. You cannot recover it back now. Let's talk about the next command now. Now we will talk about Hadoop FS move from local. Okay, so let's see what exactly it is and what exactly it can do for you. The Hadoop move from local command moves a file from local system to SDFS directory. It removes the original source. It is moved from local, right? So let's try to do that. What I'll do is I'll say create a file called word1.txt, done. Create a file called word2.txt, done, right? Now if I say ls, I should see word1.txt and word2.txt. These two is what we have created just now. Now I would say Hadoop FS -move from local, word1.txt should be moved to dot, right? So paste. Should we move to dot? So it means it moves word1.txt from your local to your SDFS, right? Now, okay, it already exists. That's the problem. But then let me say Hadoop FS-RMR word1.txt. Let me delete this. Done. It is moved. And now let me say Hadoop FS move from local word1.txt. Done. Now you say ls. Okay, now if you see your word1.txt is moved, it is moved to your SDFS and it's deleted from your local file system. That's what it does for you. Okay, now similarly, you can also say Hadoop FS-move from local word2.txt, word3.txt. Now when you do this, what happens is this is your source and this is your destination, right? So let's try this out as well. But then I'll have to make sure that I do not have Hadoop FS-RMR, okay, word2.txt. I just want to make sure that I don't have it in my SDFS. Done. Now ls, I have word2.txt and I'll say Hadoop FS move from local word2.txt. This you move to word3.txt. So again, a bad luck. Hadoop FS-RMR word3.txt. Right, so you remove your word3.txt as well, and it's done, right? And now you try to do the same example, right? And say ls. So you should see that your word2.txt is also moved into a file called word3.txt. Okay. Now I think what I could do is, before you execute this command, let me add one more thing here. You should probably say Hadoop FS-RMR, okay, and word star.txt before you even execute this code, so that you don't have that problem of file already exists and all, right? So let's move on. So I'll beautify it later. Next, you have a command called Hadoop FS move. Okay, it moves the file from source SDFS to destination SDFS. it can also be used to move multiple source file into target directory. In that case, the target should be a directory and must exist. You can also rename a file using this technique. Let's see this. Okay. Now look into this example. So what I'll do is I'll say paste Hadoop fs-move word1.txt to word2.txt. So what you're saying is, if I have word1.txt, I want to rename it to word2.txt. That's all. So if word2.txt does not exist, then this would be possible. Okay. So let's say Hadoop fs-ls. I had one word1.txt. Okay. And what I did is I renamed it to word2.txt. Right. So let me do the reverse again. I'll do the reverse again. Okay. I'll say I want to move the content of word2.txt to word1.txt. Now what will happen is this word2.txt would be renamed to word1.txt. You have now word1.txt. It is renamed, right? So this technique can also be used to rename your files. Now let me do what? Let me try to create a folder called word count. Okay, so I'll say Hadoop fs-mkdir word count folder. Word count folder is created. Done. Now let's say let's do this. Okay, so I'm saying Hadoop fs-move this file word2.txt word3.txt to word count, but then be very cautious that you have word2.txt as well as word3.txt, right? So before I do this, let me say Hadoop fs-ls. Do I have word1? Yes. Let's see, what are we looking for? 2 and 3, right? So I do not have 2, right? So let me do that. Hadoop fs-mv word1.txt word2.txt. This will create a word2.txt and word3.txt is already there, right? After that, this command looks valid, right? After that, this command looks perfectly valid. So let's do this. Okay. So I'm saying Hadoop fs-move /user sd user word2.txt word3.txt, right? So I have word2.txt, I have word3.txt, and I want to move this to a word count folder, right? So hit enter. Now let us try to see the content of word count folder. So Hadoop fs-ls, I can just say word count. I don't really have to even write /user sd user because this is the default location for me. And if you see, I was able to get word2 and word3, but then we have moved the file, right? So again, let me say Hadoop fs-ls, and you should not see word2 and word3 in this particular location. Word3, word2.txt are removed from here. It's moved to word count folder. Now you could also do something like this. Okay, so see here, you still have word4 word6.txt. So I can also use a wildcard character saying that Hadoop fs-move all files starting with word, I want to move it to word count folder. You can also do this, right? And then say Hadoop fs-ls. Now if you see, everything is moved where? Into this location word count. So just say Hadoop fs-ls word count. Now if you see, all files that starts with word, everything is properly present here. This can be used when you know the pattern of the file, when you know that, hey, I know the file that starts with this, I want them to be moved together into a folder. Just create a folder and then start moving the data into that place. Let's try to do this. Okay, so I'll say let me create a folder again. I'll create a folder called opt. Okay, output, right? So I'll just create a folder called opt, or maybe you can say option or whatever. Okay, so let me create a folder Hadoop fs-mkdir opt. This will create a folder. Done. Next, now you'll say Hadoop fs-move word count word3.txt to opt word4.txt. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to move this file to a new name, right? So I'm actually, if you see, what I'm doing is I'm saying in my word count I have a word3.txt. You move this file to opt, but with the name word4.txt. And now what you do is you first check word count. You should see word3 should not be there. Okay, so Hadoop fs-ls word count, you should not see word3.txt. word3.txt is missing. Okay, now I'll check my Hadoop fs-ls. I'll check my opt. Okay, now in opt you should see word4, right? So see, this file word3 was moved to opt with a new name called word4.txt. What I'm trying to prove here is your move command can move the file as well as rename it at the same time, right? That's what we are actually able to see in this example. Now Hadoop FS DU. Okay, let's see what exactly it does. So the DU command displays aggregated length of a file contained in the directory or the length of a file in case it's just a file. I have copied ubuntu.iso file into Ubuntu and uploaded that to SDFS. The size of the file is 2.29 gigs. So what I did, I wanted to have a larger file. So what I did is I just said Hadoop FS-put and I copied this Ubuntu downloaded file. Okay, I'll also do the same thing for you guys. Give me a minute. What I'll do is I'll go back to Hadoop installation. Okay, so I'll go back to my Ubuntu installation. Now if you see in the downloads, I have this file, ISO file, right? Ubuntu 20 ISO file. Let me copy this file. I'll say copy. Okay, and let me go back to Ubuntu and let me copy it here. Let me paste it here. It is copied this file Ubuntu from my Windows to Ubuntu system, right? So this is basically the ISO file, a big file of 1 GB more, like of around 2 GB. So what I'll do is I'll say go to my desktop. Okay, now I'll say ls. Okay, now I'll say Hadoop FS-put Ubuntu. Okay, where to put dot. This is taking some time because it's a 2 GB of file, 2 to 3 GB of file, right? So what it is doing, breaking it and then start sending it, and it's done. It has uploaded a 2 GB of file so soon, is not it? All right, now let's say Hadoop FS-ls. Okay, now if you see the file size, if you see it is very big, is not it? And then this is your file altogether. Now let's move on. I just said Hadoop FS-ls and what we got is this numbers. What we got is this numbers, right? Now I can also try doing something like this, Hadoop FS-du. Now when you say du, then what it does is it basically gives you the folder wise or the file wise the total length. Okay, folder wise or file wise the total length. Look into this. One thing to understand here is you may say, hey, the first column, the second column looks same. Okay, now in the real time when you have a replication, okay, what will happen? See here, the first column is the total size of the file in terms of bytes. This is all in terms of bytes. Okay, so for example, if you just take this number and then you say divide by 1024 1024 1024, you get the actual size. Okay, the second column is basically the total size of file after replication. Since the replication factor is 1, hence the size is same. Okay, in any real-time cluster, the second column would have 3 times the value of column 1. Usually it is a standard, every company follows that they keep the replication factor to 3. Okay, so if this looks 2.29, then this should be multiple of 3. 2.29 into 3, this would show you that number here. Okay, what I'll do is let me do something like this here. I'll say I want to check the replication of this file, right? Sorry, I want to check the size of only one particular file. So you can say Hadoop FS-du. Hold on, yeah, so I have a change in the file name, right? So give a minute. Our file name is different now, it's Ubuntu 20, right? So I'll say Hadoop FS-du, right? And then give this file name. Done, right? So if you see, this gives you the same number, but can we do a replication of 3, right? Can we do a replication of 3? Let's try to force a replication of 3 to this particular file, right? So I'll say paste 2104, and this would basically set the replication factor to 3. But as I've told you, if it is a 1 node, then it really does not do a replication to 3, right? And then when you say du, it will basically shows you that it is going to take this many space. Okay, now if you see, like, multiply by 3 and you'll get this number, right? See here, 28 into 3 is something, see, 30 into 3 is 90, right? So something very close to it, right? So that's what it is. Okay, now let's move on. So we understood that you can play around with these numbers. You can see how much space it has taken in your disk. So du is basically your disk usage, right? Now you can also do that to print the data in human readable format. Okay, so you can say Hadoop FS-du-h, and h means human readable format, right? So just say Hadoop FS-du-h and then give the file name, right? So if you see, it is now giving you the size in terms of gigs, human readable format, right? Now similarly, you can also do something like this. You can say Hadoop FS-df-h, and then you can say give me the details of slash. Now it says, hey, your file system is this, your total size of this is 78, and how much is used is 4.3, how much is available is 39 point this, and usage is only 5%. So this can basically help you to know the file systems and all, right? All right, now let's move on. You can also do something like this. You can pinpoint saying that, hey, I want to know my usage, because I really don't care about somebody else, right? As I said, people will send me an email, right, saying that, hey, you are running out of your disk. How do you identify what is the problem, right? So you can just check, okay, let me say slash user sd user, and it will tell me how much is used and how much is not used, right? In my case, I'm the only guy, so it will show me the same number. In the real time, if you have two cluster, let's say something like this, okay, I'm just giving an example. It does not mean that this is the real cluster owned by ICICI and all, right? So you could basically do something like this also to know the size, what is the size you are occupying. Okay. All right. So all these commands are all developers command. Okay. Because see, at the end of the day, when you are a developer, you should know the size of a file. What is your disk space once you have executed this Spark job or any other big data job? How much size it is consuming? Is it a time? Sometime if the cluster is completely full of your disk, then you will get an email asking you to, and they will ask you to clean the space, right? So you should know which directory is heavily loaded and useless, so that you can easily remove the files, right? Okay, next, you can remove the files and empty directories. So you can say hadoop fs -rm slash user slash sd user and file, right? So let's try this out. If you have a file, then it would be deleted. Okay, so if you do not have a file, then it would not be deleted for sure. So what I can do is probably I'll say word. I don't think I have word, but I think I have fruits. So fruits is a directory. Okay, so sorry, yeah, so we were learning how to delete a file. Okay, so if you want to delete a file, you will use this. You use rm if you want to delete a file. Okay, but then if you have a file or folder you don't know, then you can use rmr. Okay, you can use rmr, or you can use either rm-r, or you can use rmr. Okay, so in this case, fruits is a directory, right? So you can use rmr, and when you did this, it says, hey, this is deprecated, why don't you use this approach? So I've mentioned both the approach, and I've said that this is deprecated, right? So always prefer using this, but then it does not matter even if you use this. Now you can use a command called tail, right? It's very similar to what you are doing on Linux, right? So you want to see you want to see the last kilobyte of the file, so you can use tail option. Okay, so you can say sdfs dfs hyphen tail, or hadoop fs hyphen tail. Okay, slash user sd user opt, this is your folder, right? And then this is your folder, till here it is your folder, and this is the file on which you want to see, right? So let me check if I have this file. Do we have this file? We do not have, right? So what we can do is probably load a file. Okay, let's load a file. So say I'll go to that location where my log files are present, right? So if you remember, we have installed Hadoop, where we have installed that in slash user local Hadoop. Here you should have log, right? So I went to that ls. So I have a lot of files here, right? Now what I can do is probably I may copy all these files to a SDFS. So what should you do? You can basically create a directory like this: Hadoop fs hyphen mkdir, okay, logs. Okay, it already exists. So I'll say Hadoop underscore logs. Anything, okay? So Hadoop underscore logs. I created a folder called Hadoop underscore logs. Let me copy all these files, right? So I'll say Hadoop fs hyphen put, and what I want to put star.log. Where do you want to put Hadoop underscore logs, right? So I'm saying copy all the log file into Hadoop underscore logs. Done, right? So now I'll come back. You don't even have to come back, okay? And let me say Hadoop fs hyphen ls Hadoop underscore logs. I have got some log files here. Now, if you want to see the last kilobyte of it, like last few lines of it, then you can use Hadoop fs hyphen tail. Okay, and that's what we were talking about. So you can say Hadoop fs hyphen tail and give the file name. What is the file name? Any file name which you want to open, right? So you should give this path. Okay, and hit enter. And if you see, it just tells you, it just gives you the last kilobyte of of this particular file, right? So likewise, you can definitely, see some few kilobytes of it. If you want to open, you can also do something like this. You can say cat, right? Which will display the everything. If you want to see everything, then you should say cat, and we have already seen that. Or you can say text, that also would work. This would give you everything. It's not it. Otherwise, what you can do, that this file is present in your SDFS. You can do something like this. You can say, give me the output, transfer this output to temp.log, probably. Okay, so transfer this output to temp.log. Done. So it does not print, but it transfers the output to temp.log. And now you can say ls, just say ls. You should see temp.log here, right? And then you can open this on vim if you want to see, or whatever you want to do. Or you can say more temp.log, and this more command will help you to see the file in page by page.